following is a presentation of the Around the Galaxy podcast stream.
This is Pete Fletzer. On this very special edition of Around the Galaxy, we're taking a look back at the first 50 episodes of the show. Join us as we relive some great moments from more than a dozen previous guests and play some kind words from you, our listeners. So strap yourselves in, relax, and enjoy this journey around the galaxy. Welcome to episode number 50 of Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show. I am your host, Pete Fletzer. Thank you for joining me on this very special episode. It's a look back at almost a year's worth of podcasts. When I jumped back into the Star Wars fandom, and more specifically social media, I was struck by just how many great and interesting people I met there. I was inspired by my days as a contributing editor for Star Wars Galaxy magazine and the Superfan columns that I used to write with Steve Sansweet. I remembered that getting to know the story of the fan and bringing it to other fans was a gift, and I wanted to get back to it. So I started this podcast and named it for one of the columns I was responsible for with Star Wars Galaxy in the mid-90s. I've had the great pleasure to talk to some of the creators of Star Wars content, some voices behind some of the characters, different personalities, and professional reporters from the galaxy far, far away. I've had the chance to talk to podcasters of the shows that I never missed, the chance to catch up with old friends, and literally make new ones, all thanks to this show. Today I want to bring you some of my favorite moments from the first 50 episodes, moments that sort of define what Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show, is all about. If this is your first exposure to ATG, well, I hope it whets your appetite for more. And if you're a regular listener, I hope these were some of your favorite memories as well. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, rate, and review this show on whatever podcast service you use. Share it with a friend who's a big fan of Star Wars, and please follow us on Twitter at ATGcast. You can also now leave us a message anytime at 609-284-9861, and who knows, maybe we'll play your message on an upcoming episode. So let's get right to it and take our next trip around the galaxy.
Hey, this is Dominic Pace of The Mandalorian. Just want to wish Around the Galaxy podcast all the best and congratulations on your 50th episode. May the Force be with you, and all the best to your listeners.
Thank you so much, Dominic. It means a ton to me that you took the time to give us a call and wish us well, and I can not thank you enough for being an ambassador for all things Star Wars. You know, when I started this podcast, one of the reasons I started it was because I wanted to understand and learn about what makes other fans tick. And one of the things that I've always seen is that Star Wars, when the community is working well, it is just a wonderful and beautiful place to be. And I had a great conversation with Lacey Gilleran of the Resistance broadcast. She took a risk on the show when we were just 4 episodes old and joined me. And part of our conversation was talking about what the fandom means to her.
We had our small group of friends that were into Star Wars, whether it was 1, 2, or 10 guys and girls that all got into it. But we all kind of believed we had this special thing. And then the internet exploded, and suddenly we were like, wait a minute, there's a lot of people in this club. It makes you feel like, hey, we're not alone, guys. There's a lot of us out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said for the past couple of weeks, it's been kind of an emotional ride for me with the panel and everything, especially Star Wars Celebration. I've been to previous ones. I've been to Anaheim, London, and Orlando. But this one specifically, going as a fan and then going with Star Wars Newsnet and the Resistance broadcast, it was a change for me because I had been so active in the community to be there and have people be like, oh, you're Lacey from this. It was very overwhelming because for a long time in my life, I've always tried to find where I fit in. And despite what people believe, it doesn't mean that you're going to figure that out in your teens or your 20s. Because I'm now in my 30s and I'm just kind of figuring it out. But I feel like we're all kind of figuring it out along the way. But I finally feel comfortable in a space where I have people that are awesome and they're my support system and they love what I love. And I wouldn't have had that 10 years ago.
That's right.
But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything. I would still, live my life the way I've lived it because it ended up here with these people. And the belonging that I found with Star Wars specifically, I'm just so thankful and I wouldn't change anything about it.
One of the questions that I try to ask every one of my guests is, what is your favorite Star Wars memory? And sometimes it comes from a very unique spot. When I get to talk to people who've had really interesting access and unprecedented access to the Star Wars universe, the first example here is when I had the opportunity to speak to Ken Napzok, who's the author of the book Why We Love Star Wars and co-host of the Force Center podcast.
But my favorite moment that I've got to experience came from when I was working at Screen Junkies. We were doing a little kind of package deal with a company called Wizard World, and in August of what was that? August of 2017? Yeah. I got to, or maybe it was 2016. I'm sorry, I get so bad with dates and I get really obsessive with it. It was August. I got to co-host a panel for Carrie Fisher at Wizard World.
Oh, wow.
And that would end up being about 2.5, 3 months before she passed away ish, right? Maybe about 4. So I didn't know at the time either. Obviously, we didn't know it. It just even had more impact after that tragedy. But not just meet her, but to see how she loved it. She embraced it, even though it had been a long kind of battle with Star Wars and fandom and everything, you know what I mean? And she covers some of that in her book, The Princess Diaries. But at the end of the day, she loved these fans, and to see the impact. Couple moments there was a personal moment, and what I got to see in the line, we take questions from the audience all through the panel, and she's doing the Carrie stuff, she's singing the Life Day song, she's having fun. Got to see a young girl. The first question we took is a young girl who's like, hi, I am bipolar as well, I have some suffer some mental issues, and you are an inspiration to me. And it was just like, oh wow, this isn't about Star Wars. And then another girl, 10-year-old girl, pops up in the middle of it and goes, how can I be like Princess Leia? Which Carrie had a real, she goes, hate your father. But and then the last question was another girl who suffered through some of the bipolar and some of the stuff Carrie battled with, and she had a dog there that was a service animal, emotional help animal, which of course Gary the dog, and I got to feed Gary the dog on stage. And Carrie dressed her, and that was towards the end of the panel, but didn't matter. Carrie just shut it all down, said, cool, we're done, called the girl backstage. They had a little private moment that was between them, and I just remember getting the full impact of who Carrie was, mistakes and failures and all, which are very public, and how she is an inspiration. She is Carrie, like she always says, I'm Princess Leia. Princess Leia is me. It's like a Mobius striptease. Like it that runs deep, even more than I understood growing up. And then the fan moment, as she was talking at one point, she took off her glasses and she's just kind of looking at me as I'm asking a question. And no matter how old you get and what happens, how much in and out of shape you might be, your eyes are your eyes. Yep. And I looked into the face of Hoth Leia. It was her face, her cheeks, her eyes, and it's on camera. Pete, I stop. I just go, I'm just like staring at Leia. Leia's in front of me, and it was a great moment.
Another great moment was spending some time with Clayton Sandell of ABC News, who is a self-proclaimed Star Wars nerd. Clayton has done some amazing behind-the-scenes work, and to hear him gush about his experiences was a lot of fun.
One of the things that always interested me as a kid was how are they making these things? And in fact, my first interview for Star Wars Galaxy was with Ben Burt. So we sort of had that in common.
Yeah, legend. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's always been the process of making these movies and the people who make them that has fascinated me. And my wife thinks I'm nuts, but I will occasionally, if I'm in the mood, we'll be watching like Empire Strikes Back, and there's that great giant blueprints book that J.W. Rinsler and Lucasfilm put out several years back. And I will sit there and open up, the Hoth hangar set blueprint and just kind of look around at that and try and figure out where the camera angles were, and where certain scenes took place and where the camera was and what they were shooting and where the, characters must have been standing and all that kind of stuff. Just 'cause it's just kind of fun. And and so it's been neat to, and just kind of surreal. And I just kind of pinch myself that I get to do some of this occasionally, that you get to walk in the doors at ILM and sort of, pull back the curtain on that legacy a little bit and all of the work they've done over the years. And, there's some of the guys like Dennis Murin are still there.
Yeah, they're still
walking the halls.
Yeah.
And so, it's that for me is really fun, just to kind of show how that kind of stuff is done and see how the technology has changed and getting into the history a little bit. I mean, when Rogue One came out, my wife and I went to the premiere, and it was funny because we were talking about who we were excited to see that night, and of course she's talking about like Riz Ahmed and Diego Luna, and she's like, "Who do you want to see?" And I was like, "Dennis Murin. I just saw Dennis Murin. We got to chase Dennis Murin down." So, got to shake Dennis Murin's hand and talk to him for 5 minutes, and that was kind of neat. So, yeah, it's the behind the scenes stuff that has always just fascinated me. And so when we did The Force of Sound, which was a great opportunity to get to go to Skywalker Ranch and get to go in the edit rooms and get to meet the people who are recording the sounds and mixing the sounds and doing all of that stuff. And when we put it together, the greatest compliment we got was from Rian Johnson, who said, "This is exactly the kind of thing that I used to like watching as a kid." And
Yep.
he nailed it. I mean, he just nailed it completely, because that's exactly what we were going for. And to me, that was just the highest compliment for somebody like Rian to say, "Yeah, this is kind of what we liked as kids."
David Amilati with Beyond the Blast Doors, dropping by to say congratulations to you, Pete, and everyone really involved with making Around the Galaxy so successful. 50 episodes, and it's been 50 great adventures that we've gone with you. I think it's safe to say the force is strong with Around the Galaxy, and we all cannot wait to see who's next going to join you on this show. Continued success, my friend. See you soon.
That, of course, is my buddy and co-host on Streaming Star Wars, David Amilati. David, thank you so much for leaving me a note. It means so much to me, and it's great working with you on this Star Wars journey together. One of the things that I do with every episode as well is I wanted to ask every one of my guests what some of their earliest Star Wars memories are. And when you have an opportunity to speak to somebody like Anthony Breznican, who's been covering Star Wars from Vanity Fair, and Nathan Hamill, who is the son of Mark Hamill, it's almost surprising to hear that their Star Wars memories aren't a heck of a lot different than yours. Well, maybe Nathan's are a little bit different, but let's start by listening to Anthony Breznican's first Star Wars memories.
Tell me about your first Star Wars experience.
Oh, well, that was, I think it was, as far as I can remember, the first movie I saw. I mean, if it wasn't the first movie I saw, it was the first one I remembered seeing.
Right.
And it was not Star Wars, but The Empire Strikes Back. So I was born in 1976. I was a little too young for the first round of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And you know what? To be honest, I have no idea when I saw Star Wars for the first time. It just felt like one of those things that was there. But I remember seeing The Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and we showed up late to the theater, and we're hustling to get in. It's blazing hot in the summertime, and the doors open to the theater, and your eyes are trying to adjust when you go into a dark theater.
Yeah.
You kind of freeze for a minute because you can't see anything, and it's cold in there, right? Because movie theaters love to advertise, come here for the air conditioning in the summertime. Yeah. It's cold. We just walked out of the sweltering heat, and there on the screen is this ice world, Hoth.
Right.
The giant Imperial walkers marching across the landscape. And to me, it looked like, I don't think I could perceive what a movie was, right? To me, that was just like a gigantic picture window. Mm-hmm. And it felt like that cold air was coming off the screen, like that window had been left open. And it was awe-inspiring.
That's great.
And that's what I remember, was seeing Star Wars, and as The Empire Strikes Back, getting there a little bit late, and then feeling like I really had walked into a portal to another world. And then I'm a big believer that the action figures are the key factor in making Star Wars what it is as a cultural phenomenon, because kids like me would see the movie, but they would get those action figures and that toy Millennium Falcon and make up their own stories all summer long,
right?
And all winter long, and on Christmas night, and whenever you got your toys, you would make up your own Star Wars stories.
Yeah,
and that's how Star Wars really lived, in the fertile ground of lots and lots of kids' imaginations, thanks to those toys.
Right.
To the point where I remember later seeing the movies and being like, wow, Hammerhead's not really in this very much, considering what a vital role he played in so many of my Star Wars stories.
I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to ask the very same question of Mark Hamill's son, Luke Skywalker's boy, Nathan Hamill.
What was your introduction to Star Wars? Because you were born during the Empire Strikes Back filming.
Yeah.
So I imagine. So what's some of your earliest memories of Star Wars and seeing it, and how were you introduced to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been there. You know, it's like that thing where you kind of I don't have hardly any memories of being on set. I have vague memories of the redwood trees, where they shot for the forest moon of Endor. But it's one of those things. It's so big, and there's probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3. I'm not sure exactly when it was filmed, but I even question whether that's a false memory that I've something that I hope that I remembered. But really, the one thing I do remember for sure was Jabba the Hutt in the theater. That massive close up. Okay. Hard to forget when you're that age,
Yeah.
But that's kind of my first memories, and then playing with the toys, and I remember going to. But I remember being at Skywalker Ranch when I was younger, and George, Uncle George, he let me into the toy room in the basement or something, and he goes, "Oh, you can pick out one thing," and I was, it was overwhelming. I picked out. Well, he let me have 2 things. So I picked out an ATST, the Chicken Walker, which is still one of the greatest toys ever with the walking motion. And this little, it looks like a bowling bag, Empire Strikes Back bowling bag, which I don't, if anyone, tweet at me at NathanHamill.com if you know where this, or I'll just find, where's Steve Sansweet? It looks like this little bowling bag, but I've never seen it. I've never seen who made it, where it came from, and I still have that.
Hey, Pete. It's Andy from Holo Chronicles. My question is to you. I know you collect Funkos, but if you didn't, and you wanted to get one toy from your childhood, or maybe a toy that you never got but you always wanted, what would it be? Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Andy. That's a great question, especially in light of what Nathan was just talking about and in light of who the next clip I'm going to play is from. But to answer your question, geez, if I could have any of my old toys back, I think I would want my 1980 Imperial Walker back. That was probably the favorite toy I've ever owned. I beat that thing to death, and I would love to have another one. So great question. And speaking of collecting and collectibles, I had mentioned earlier on that I had started this podcast because of the work that I did with and for Steve Sansweet on Star Wars Galaxy Magazine. Steve was really my mentor and the gentleman who gave me access and my first Star Wars Galaxy Magazine job. I had him on episode number 6 of Around the Galaxy, and here we are talking about the one collectible that seemed to have been missing from his collection.
You're still adding to your collection. Is there any piece out there that you're coveting, or have you gotten your collection to a point now where it's you're surprised by what you find and surprised and delighted by what you find?
Yeah, there's nothing that falls into the realm of Holy Grail. There was something I was talking about for a couple of months. And people would ask, at the end of a tour, well, is there anything you're looking for? And I would always try to come up with something. And I said, yeah, there's this Hungarian poster. Now, I've got Hungarian posters for Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, but there's this secondary poster for Empire, and it's sort of horizontal and it's brownish, and I've seen it a couple of times, but there's only like 3 of them that have popped up, and I have Hungarian poster collectors looking for it for me, and it's something I really want. Well, a couple of months ago, in preparing for Celebration Chicago, we're going through flat file drawers to look for art from the previous celebrations, because one of the things we wanted to do was have part of our exhibit be celebrating 20 years of Star Wars celebrations. Yeah. And I'm raising these posters up and the art up, and what the heck is that? It was the Hungarian poster.
You had it all along?
I had it all along. Completely forgot that I had it. I don't. I have no recollection of getting it. When, where, from whom? I don't know. I don't.
That's a sign of a problem, but I think you already knew you.
Oh, yeah, that should be the worst problem. Yeah.
Had the opportunity also to catch up with Dan Madsen, who was the founder of Star Wars Insider magazine, a magazine that I got the opportunity to do a little bit of work for. And Dan was the godfather of Star Wars fandom. And I asked him to talk a little bit about the current state of Star Wars fandom.
The most vocal people are generally those that are on social media. Social media is both a blessing and a curse. I personally, I don't see any good coming out of trashing something. I mean, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a right to like or not like a Star Wars film. And, your life doesn't end because the last Star Wars film was not what you wanted it to be. It is just a film. It's just a movie. Right. And, the thing that always irritates me, I've heard people say, well, my childhood is ruined now. Now they made this. Right. Now, everything about Star Wars is ruined. I thought, why can't you still love everything about Star Wars that happened prior to that movie? And, but for you to say that one movie has now soured you to everything just shows how shallow that is of an argument. It's crazy. So just ignore that movie. Pretend that movie didn't happen. You can still love everything else that was made. So, I don't have a lot of tolerance nor a lot of patience with the really bad mouthing of things on the internet, and especially when they start bad mouthing some of the actors, or complaining about too many female characters and on and on and on. That's when I draw the line, and I try to ignore it, because there's trolls out there in any franchise in any way, shape, or form, and they're gonna try to make the world a darker place, and that's just, the world's a dark enough place on its own. We don't need people trying to do that.
We're going to keep the theme going. I had the opportunity also to speak to Scott Chernoff, who was my editor when I was doing a handful of pieces for Star Wars Insider magazine. I brought him on the show. Scott has since gone on to work for Conan O'Brien and Rick and Morty, and he had a very unique perspective on how he felt about Star Wars in the Disney era.
As Star Wars, I take both really seriously and not at all seriously, and I think both are possible, and for me at least necessary. I mean, on the one hand, it had a really deep impact on as a child, especially my outlook on life, and it was about how you could make a choice between good and evil, and you could choose the path you were going to walk down, and inside all of us, there was the potential to be this hero and to tap into the Force, and all that was really deep to me when I was growing up. But at the same time, it's also Wookiees and lasers and lightsabers, and it's kind of crazy and kind of silly. I mean, so I love it for both reasons, and I can enjoy it on both levels, and I still very much do. And especially now that I have a kid who has turned out to be a Star Wars fan, which I didn't really push her to be.
Right.
but I think maybe seeing me wearing Star Wars t-shirts half the time and me telling her that she wasn't old enough to see it yet, which I meant, kind of piqued her interest, and she loves it now. Rey is her idol. So I see it through her eyes, and that's also pretty amazing. So I'm still a huge Star Wars fan.
So why do you refer to them as, or look at them as fan fictions? I'm just curious. It's an interesting perspective.
I mean, because Star Wars was created by one guy, like it or not. Yep. I don't like everything he did. I like most of what he did. I didn't like every choice he made on the special editions. I didn't like every choice he made in the prequels, but it's his vision, and it's his story. And it became our story because it just became universal, and it's so good that we all were just captivated. But I guess I see it as like he's passed the torch to other people, but not that the original movies are real in any way, but this is now another step removed where it's like it's other people coming in and saying, wouldn't it be cool if this happened in the Star Wars universe? That's fair. That's cool. That's an interesting point. And I think for me, at least, it takes the pressure off of like loving them or hating them or being so precious about it's got to be this way and it's got to pay off this and that. And, it's got to be like it was when I was a kid. And, no. Right. It's just like, oh, let's see this new take on Star Wars.
Hey, this is Araj from the Sith List podcast, and we would like to wish our Making Star Wars family members around the galaxy a wonderful 50th episode. Thank you so much for putting out 50 episodes full of great Star Wars interviews and content. Pete, also thanks for coming on the Sith List. We had a wonderful time talking some Star Wars, some Rush, and all kinds of cool fandom. So we got to get you back on as soon as possible. Also, you've had 50 amazing guests on, and thank you for letting me be a part of that. I had an absolute blast zipping around the galaxy with you. Can't wait to listen to 50 more. Congrats again from everybody here at the Sith List.
Thank you so much, Araj. It was a blast being on your show, and it was great having you on our show. You were on episode number 43, right before Thanksgiving. We had a great conversation, sort of pre-Rise to Skywalker, but thank you again for the kind words. And, speaking to Araj is just one of the podcasters that I love speaking to, people who I've listened to for a long time and really have an opportunity to talk story with them and talk beyond what they get to talk about on their podcast. And I had the opportunity to speak to probably the first Star Wars internet content provider that I had followed other than StarWars.com themselves. I had the great pleasure of speaking to Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained, and we spent a couple of minutes talking about where Star Wars is headed now that the Skywalker saga has come to an end. The end of the Skywalker saga, and what do you think Star Wars is going to be like after December 20th, 2019?
Man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I've been really digging the sequel trilogy, but I'm ready to move on. Especially, I feel like things in the book and comic arena have been a little limited. I think that we've really been focused on the prequel to sequel trilogy era, and so much content has come out that takes place between episodes, I guess, 3 and 5. I feel like that's where most of it has happened, and I've enjoyed most of it, but I would really love to just shoot off into something new and weird that I have like no expectations with. There's no baggage of like having these characters that I've loved since I was 8. I just want to meet some new people, and I mean the sequel trilogy has delivered on that. I really love all of the new characters, but I'm ready to just do something really off the wall. That's why I think I love the Dr. Aphra comic so much, is because it is so weird. But I love that.
Another podcast that I absolutely love is a show called Tarkans Top Shelf, and it's hosted by Becca Benjamin, who was kind enough to be a guest on my show. And every now and then I'll have a conversation with a guest that will completely open my mind to looking at pieces of the story completely differently. And Becca did just that when I asked her the question, did Padme die of a broken heart?
I think, well, that's how they have her written. That's George's canon. That's George's version. And I don't discredit that. We have real life incidences of that every day. That doesn't make someone weak. I always believe that the very thing that people tend to pick us apart for of our weaknesses are our very strengths. And I believe even when you look at Anakin Skywalker, the weakness that Palpatine picked him apart for was the fact that he loved his son and he loved his family. And, that love was a weakness. It's not. It's his greatest strength. That's what brings him back. And in the end, because of Luke. And I think Padme's biggest, was that she loved everybody. She wanted a better place for everybody. And we know this now from reading Queen Shadow, that she believed that everybody, no matter who you were, what race, what gender, what your status was, whether you were poor, a slave, rich, whatever, you deserved a fair shake. Everyone. And she was fighting hard for that. She wanted everyone to be equal. And I really do believe at the end of the day, like Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, she did die of a broken heart. It was just too much. Right. And you have to remember, she was at her most vulnerable state. She's pregnant. You're married. You have children. You know how vulnerable a woman is at that point. Right. You cannot be stressed. That is like the biggest thing that your doctors are going to tell you. Avoid stress, eat the right things and, blah, blah, blah. But here she is, all by herself, running onto a lava planet to her husband, who she knows she's been told he has killed children. He has committed murder, a ton of times now. And she's risking her life and the life of others. Well, she thinks one, but two, to see if she can stop this, to see if she can still change it.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked you this question. I haven't thought about it this way at all. This is fantastic.
Well, I try.
Hey, it's Scott Chernoff. Congratulations around the galaxy and Pete for a great show, for 50 great episodes. They said it wouldn't last. I said it wouldn't last, but you proved us all wrong. The show is awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I want to ask you a question that I got asked now that you are a veteran Star Wars journalist here, 50 episodes in. Back when I was editor of Star Wars Insider magazine, way back when, if anybody remembers that magazine, which is probably still going, so you might remember it. But when I was editor, I'd get asked this, and I pose it to you. Why do you refuse to interview Harrison Ford? Why do you think, Pete Fletcher, that you're so great that you're too big to interview Keira Knightley? Why do you refuse to let Ewan McGregor on your show? Yes, rarely a day went by when I wasn't emailed with demands for why I, Scott Chernoff, chose to not have Harrison Ford or Keira Knightley interviewed in Star Wars Insider. And finally, after all those years, I can answer the question. They wouldn't talk to me. Pete, see if you can talk to them. Congratulations. Happy 50th.
Thank you very much, Scott, and thank you for that insight. I'm not going to lie. It's not that I'm not trying to get the Harrison Fords and the Ewan McGregors of the world on the show. It's just that they won't return my calls either. But I have been very fortunate to have on the show a number of people who have created either the voices or the characters or written the stories that have brought Star Wars to us as fans. And let me play some examples of that right now. Here's a clip of the interview I did with Christopher Sean, the voice of Kazuda Xiono from Star Wars Resistance.
Geez, I've been a fan since Star Wars has been around, and I've never been to a celebration. I'm going this year. We're bringing the kids and the family, and just because I've heard such positive things. Yeah, I'll be going out to Anaheim. Yeah.
Oh.
So that should be. Are you? Will you be there?
I'd like to say yes, but at the same time, there's no confirming that.
Right.
Yeah, man. I mean, believe me, I would love to say yes because it's an experience of a lifetime to go hang out with the stars of Star Wars, you know? And then, of course, obviously, like, if you're there, I'm like, Pete, what up? I get to meet your kids. That would be really cool. I high-five the kids, and then I do the little thing where I picked this up from someone, and I totally forgot who, but they say, this is the voice of Kazuda Xiono. And then they're looking at me, and then someone says, would you tell them to close their eyes? And you go, get ready to be impressed. And they're like, oh my God, it's Kaz, you know? So yeah, I mean, that's like such a awesome thing to do.
It's funny to hear you say that, because I was going to comment that your Kaz voice is a little bit different than, I'm hearing remnants of it, but do you work a special type of voice when you do it, or do you just kind of go in and does your personality drive it, or do you have to work your voice? How do you go about Kaz?
Yeah, Kaz is actually my normal register is like cool, calm, I guess you'd say. Like, I get excited and then right. I have to pitch my octave maybe an octave higher. So Kaz is like up here. And Kaz, when he talks, he's a little more cool, a little more casual, as you'd say. Yeah, he's always being silly, but Kaz is he's younger, and I play him a little naive. A young hero finding his own way, and in finding his own ways, helping many others, because everyone can relate to that. The hero who wants to be a hero, but is so quirky that it's hard to be a hero. He doesn't even know what he's doing, but as he's learning, he's teaching others, and he's helping others, and he's helping himself. He's growing himself. So. Yeah, it's really, really cool. But yeah, I do have a higher pitch when I work with Kaz, and he's a lot more like, in season 2, he's much more of a leader. I can say that for sure. But in season 1, he's definitely like, I meant to do that. Yeah, I meant to do that.
It's not just the voices either. And although we do have one more voice actor coming up a little bit later in the show, very recently, in fact, on episode number 49, we had the opportunity to speak to Heather Antos, who's a story editor and consultant who used to work at Marvel and was part of the creative team that brought us Dr. Aphra.
Who's your favorite character to work with? Which characters did you like trying to bring to life the most?
Oh, I mean, Aphra, hands down, was, she's my baby. I love her dearly. She's my favorite. And, getting to, I never was a huge Lando fan, personally. But I think Charles Soule and Alex Malev's Lando comic, where we kind of explain how Lobot became Lobot, was one of the most heartbreaking and emotional stories that I wasn't ready for, and I wasn't prepared for. But I remember reading that pitch for Lando and being like, holy shit, this is fantastic. Like, I cannot wait for this. Which is cool because, as I said, like I just wasn't a Lando person.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find with the comics myself is there are certain, there are certain stories that I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm going to enjoy this. And I walk out of the comic and I'm like, holy cow, that changed my perspective completely on that character. And it's a pretty wild thing. So you said that Aphra's your baby. I want to dig in a little bit to Aphra because she has become like this cult. She's like, in a way, she's almost like the new Ahsoka. And I mean that because when Ahsoka came out, and I'll say the same thing for Aphra. When I first saw Ahsoka, I was like, gosh, that movie was not the best introduction to her as a character. But now, of course, I'm a big fan, but she's like a fan favorite. Aphra, when I first read the concept and I read the first book, I was like,
I'm not sure where this is going. And now I can't wait to see more from her. So how did she come to life? How did she get pitched? I mean, was she pitched as Indiana Jones in Star Wars? Or
she was hands down pitched as Indiana Jones in Star Wars. Like hands down. Like that, don't let anyone fool you. That's that was the concept. It was Indiana Jones in Star Wars. But like, no, so Karen is doing this Vader comic, and I don't know if you know, but Vader's not the most talkative guy.
True, yes.
He's kind of that stone cold, silent, stoic type.
Right. Doesn't like sand either, apparently.
That's what I hear. But loves killing children, though. Absolutely.
That's totally fine with him. That's right. Well, we have had a lot of laughs on the Around the Galaxy show, and quite often the laughs come during the 10 question segment of the show, which is how we end. We fire 10 Star Wars related questions at our guests and get their responses. Sometimes they're quick, sometimes they're insightful, and sometimes they're downright silly. I'd like to play a couple for you here as we wrap up this special episode. But here is, first off, Dan Donohue, the voice of Shriv from Battlefront 2.
The next question is Porg, Ewok, or Jar Jar Binks? Who's your favorite of the three?
I'm going to say, and I did give this some thought. I'm going to say Porg because, and I don't know if that's controversial. I was going to ask you. I wanted to know. I didn't. I know that people were kind of that there was talk. There's different opinions about all three of these particular folks, right. Ewoks or Jar Jar Binks specifically, or Porgs. But the reason I would choose a Porg is that, again, and this has something to do with space, not like space, outer space, but more like the space that I have here in my house. I would say if I could take on a Porg and be pretty happy. If I had a Porg living in my house, I'm sure it'd be messy. Sure, it'd be kind of annoying in a funny way a lot of times, like when I'm trying to sleep or doing whatever. But I'm not sure I could live with an Ewok, and I don't think I could live with Jar Jar. I mean, I think that I wouldn't mind knowing some Ewoks or hanging out with Jar Jar, right? But like I could seriously have a Porg around the house or a couple maybe, so they could hang out, and not feel,
What I love about this,
not have a friend.
You said you gave a little thought to this, but it sounds like you gave a lot of thought to this, Dan.
Well, the truth is that I had a dog until recently, and he passed away, and I loved him so much. Banjo, he was the sweetest guy, and there's something about the look. Banjo had a sort of Porg look in his eyes, and he had these very sweet kind of loving, this like and funny. He has such funny expression. And I'm not ready for a dog yet. I'm not sure I'm ready for a Porg yet, but I think I've just kind of sort of combined all of the thought that I've had about wanting to get a dog with all of a sudden thinking that in this particular exercise, I started considering, do I want a Porg instead? And it would be better. I think the main thing is that if anybody out there has a Porg that needs a home, I'll definitely I could take on a rescue Porg, but I will not take on a rescue Ewok. Not at this time.
Rescue Porg. That's great. I'm dying here. That's great. Yes, let's see. Right. I don't know how many times I've shed a tear when I walk by a telephone pole and people post that their Porg has gone missing.
Porg missing. I know, it's sad. It's really sad. We have coyotes around here. I mean,
anything can happen.
Anything can happen. It's a tough world for a Porg, as the song goes.
Well, in keeping with the 10 question silliness theme, this next clip is with another well-known Star Wars name, a gentleman who has brought us many, many stories, but most notably the novelization of The Last Jedi. This was Jason Fry, and when we get to the 10 question segment about who do you prefer, R2-D2 or C-3PO, he dropped some information and some thinking that was so hilarious that it spawned its own hashtag.
All right, R2-D2 or C-3PO?
Oh, I'm a huge R2 fan. And C-3PO is quietly an incredible monster. He develops systems.
How so?
He will sell everybody out. C-3PO is not a good guy. He doesn't even really mean well. He's a monster.
I've never heard him referred to as a monster. That's
God.
amazing.
In Empire, when he's like, we should surrender to the Empire. Turn around, Chewbacca. I can't see. Never mind that it's your best friend. I can't see. Why are we escaping into hyperspace, R2D2? You're not finished putting my leg back on.
He is kind of an ass. That's really.
Oh my God! It's all about him. He's the only sentient in the entire universe. No, but my favorite 3PO line of all is because it is so 3PO is, when Luke arrives at Jabba's palace and 3PO says, "Master Luke's come to rescue me." No, 3PO is a monster. I will not quit until people see it. He's a lovable monster sometimes, but not really as much as you think once you start looking at it.
Now, did you think that before you had to get into his head for writing Last Jedi, or did that sort of come to you as you're looking at it and saying, geez, he's kind of in this for himself?
Oh, yeah. No, I've been on the 3PO monster campaign for some time. I will say, though, that actually this goes back to Weapon of the Jedi, which I wrote about Luke and the droids searching for a lost Jedi temple. Like, that was one of my all-time pinch me moments writing Star Wars. I was writing C-3PO dialogue, which is itself kind of amazing. And when I couldn't get a line right, I would close my eyes and I would say it in Anthony Daniels' voice. And that was it never failed. That would let me know if it worked or if it didn't. Could I hear it that way? Which is a testament to Anthony Daniels and the amazing work he had done. And also, I was one of many moments where I was like, I can't believe I actually get to do this.
That's great. Yeah, I think we have to start the hashtag C-3PO is a monster. We got to get people on board there. So as we come to the end of this particular episode, this journey back through the first 50, I want to play one last clip for you. So when we were putting the show together and the concept, we needed to test the equipment. We needed to test the flow. We needed to see how the show might work. So I also needed a guest, and I called upon my 9-year-old Star Wars fan daughter, Lily, and I asked her a whole bunch of questions. And one of them was, what does Star Wars mean to you?
What's your favorite Star Wars experience? And it could be anything. What's when you think about what your favorite thing related to Star Wars that you've ever done is? What would you say?
My favorite thing would probably be, honestly, just sitting on the couch and getting sucked into the movies, or watching the movie for the first time in the movie theater. You've never seen it. You don't know what's coming next. Or like when if I just get a Star Wars shirt on, and then my dad does too, and my brother has one on, then sometimes my mom wears them. Like, it's a family thing. So that's a pretty cool experience that I have, that it's a whole family thing.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the clip section of this episode. And thank you so much for listening, not only to this episode, but to the 49 that have come before. You can look for links to every one of the episodes you heard here in the notes section of this particular episode. And if you had fun, please make sure to subscribe so you can catch up on all the upcoming episodes. I am humbled and honored by every single download and listen. We've made so many great friends along the way, and some of them actually went out of their way to leave us a message on this 50th episode. So I am really happy to share them with you now.
Charlie Skywalker here, Pete. Congrats on the 50th episode. Man, you're such an inspiration to me and to others. Always take the high road. Looking forward to another 50 episodes. My friend.
Hey Pete, this is David Drennan from As Father and Son, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to stop mindlessly scrolling through Twitter to say congratulations on your 50th episode of Around the Galaxy. And I thought you might be interested to know that Around the Galaxy is the very first ever podcast that I started listening to back in May of 2019. So I've been with you all the way. I've really enjoyed every episode, and I'm looking forward to a great 2020 and to see what Star Wars has in store for us this year. So congratulations again on your 50th episode, and hope to talk to you soon. What's up, everybody? This is Jerry, the Canon Junkie from the Bombad cast. Man, Pete, congrats on 50 episodes. Dude, you are running just such an awesome show, having on just people involved in the making of Star Wars, the content creators, and just all-around great fans talking about Star Wars and their fandom, and it's just so awesome. The first 50 are amazing. Check them out, and here's the 50 more, raising my invisible glass to you in honor of 50 episodes, and I can't wait to hear the next 50, buddy. So just keep doing what you're doing, and stay bombad.
Hey Pete, it's Matt Norris from PopVinyls.com. I just interrupted my 2.5-day binge of watching Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars to step outside, give you a call. Congrats on the 50th anniversary, 50th episode, excuse me. I like the podcast so much just because it's just normal people having conversations without the craziness that we both follow on Twitter. Hey man, keep it up. I'll give you another ring by the 100th episode. Talk to you later. Bye.
I'll do, Pete. It's Anthony, rural farm boy. So here comes episode 50, Around the Galaxy. And let me tell you, the first 49 went and jumped deep and wide into our Star Wars podcast family. And had many, many, many friends on. And looking forward to who all you have yet to come. So I'll be looking forward to this coming Tuesday, episode 50, Around the Galaxy in my playlist. Until then, and many more yet to come. Here's to another 50. Here's to another 150. I'll be along for all of them. And so will the rest of us. May the Force be with you. See you on the radio.
Hey, Pete, it's Scotty J-Ro with the Bombad cast. Look, man, I'm just wanted to leave a message to say how much I love this podcast, how fantastic these interviews are, and yes, like I've said before, you are the Larry King of Star Wars podcasting, and of course, respectively, I'm the Def Leppard of Star Wars podcasting, and I'll leave it up to your interpretation, but man, I've always listened to the show. Every episode is a great hit. I'm looking forward to what 2020 has in store for you, as much as it has in store for me, as well as a listener. So keep up the great work, Pete, and remember, being a guest in the show and being a part of this awesome culture, to always stay bombad, and we'll see you around the galaxy, bud.
Hey Pete, it's Todd from WSTR Galactic Public Access. Just want to congratulate you on 50 episodes. That is awesome. I hope you have 50 more and 50 more after that. Congratulations, keep it up, and may the Force be with you.
Wow. Thank you so much to those that left us a message, took time out of your really busy days just to wish us well on our first 50 episodes. That means so much, so much, more than I can possibly express. You see, this is what Star Wars fandom is all about. Spending time talking about something we care about, discovering new things, looking at our favorite galaxy a little differently, and making new friends. So do me one last favor, if you don't mind, share this episode with someone who may not be listening yet. We're just getting started. We have so many great guests lined up for you, and I can't wait to bring their stories to you. Let's keep growing this healthy part of the fandom, and remember that darkness rises and light to meet it. Be the light. I can tell you that spending time with you makes that galaxy far, far away feel just a little bit closer. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Around the Galaxy. Thank you to all our guests, and thank you for listening. If you had fun, please subscribe, like, share, rate, and review it. If you really liked it, please feel free to head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/AroundTheGalaxy. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ATGcast, and keep up with us online at atgcast.com. If you or someone you know would make a good guest, please drop us a line. So until next time, this has been Pete Fletzer, and we'll see you for our next trip around the galaxy. Around the Galaxy is copyright 2020 Pete in the Seat Studios. Our music is brought to us by the band Apollo's Ghost, whose tunes can be found on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find music.